What do you do when a renter won't leave? Hi, I'm Aaron Zapata, your co-host of the All Things Real Estate Show.
And I am Todd Anderson, your other co-host of the same show, All Things Real Estate, with the Bald Brothers team at Impact Properties.
That's right. So we're going to talk to you today about some things that are just going on in our lives right now as professional realtors. But before we do that, we want to encourage you to head over to our website at baldbrothers.tv or give us a call at 833-305-BALD. Again, that's 833-305-BALD. When you're on our website, you'll see all of the places where you can listen to this podcast, where you can watch it if you're on YouTube. And you can also give us a call. We'd love to answer your questions. And a quick shout out, a thank you to our sponsors and our affiliates who are making this show possible, Beacon Escrow and Crosswalk Mortgage. Please give them a shout out as well. Todd.
They make things happen.
They
yes,
do. They make
Aaron.
Things happen.
Yes,
Todd, we've
Aaron.
had quite an adventurous week.
We have had quite a week. In fact, last week was, whoever said real estate was boring. Real estate is exciting. You never know what you're going to get. And last week, I had a first for myself. Had a tenant eviction. The unfortunate fact is sometimes tenants don't pay rent, or sometimes tenants refuse to leave when you're trying to sell your home. And we have a probate listing that we received, and there is a tenant in the home. We received the news that the deputy sheriffs were going to be there at the property with our locksmith, and I needed to be there to rekey the locks once they got the tenant out.
Now, let's back up a little bit, Todd, because the sheriffs don't just come out when you call them.
That's right. There has to be a court order.
Yeah.
You cannot call the police and say, I want to get my tenant out. Will you come help? No, that's not what they do. There has to be documentation that gives them the authority, and really ourselves as the realtor representing the clients, the authority to be able to do this.
And in reality, here in California, the laws are very pro-tenant.
Yes.
And in fact, it's one of the reasons why many of our clients have chosen to sell their investment properties in California and take that money through a 1031 exchange and move them to another part of the country.
Out of state.
Where landlords have more authority, more rights, and the ability to kick a non-paying tenant out.
Yeah, but more. And now this particular one was a probate sale, but still, more and more people with investment properties are divesting of their California holdings and moving out of state.
And so this particular situation, the person that lives in the property has been there, they've overstayed their terms, and so they've gone through what's called the eviction process, hiring an attorney. They've gone through all of the right paperwork, all of that thing, still hasn't left. And when that happens, you then have to go through the sheriff's eviction process, which entails calling and setting an appointment. And basically you call the sheriff and you say, hey, look, we've got this tenant. We need your help. And they tell us literally, well, we'll call you when we're ready to come out there. And we were only given a 24-hour notice.
Yep. That's what happened, and Aaron's day was already booked up.
It was.
Said, Todd, you got to be down there.
Todd, you got to go somewhere.
And I
cannot go.
I had plans for the day too. We had to rearrange the plans and get down there, and so it was quite a day. By the way, if you're just tuning in, whether it's the radio station or whether you're listening to our podcast, we are All Things Real Estate. It's the All Things Real Estate Show, I should say. We are the Bald Brothers team at Impact Properties,
and we're bald.
And we are bald. You can reach us at 833-305-BALD. That's 833-305-BALD. You can go to our website at baldbrothers.tv if you want to get more information about this experience as well. So really, the situation was quite unique because when I arrived there, I made sure that I got there before the sheriff's office got there, before the locksmith, and I went to the fence of the property, and I noticed that there was a sign posted on the fence. I thought it was a sign from the tenant, letting us know, and the sign said, hey, I've given you, there's a ladder for you to crawl over the fence. I thought, wow, that's interesting. Why doesn't he just open the door for us? Turns out the note was from the neighbor, who was being very helpful. She didn't want the fence broken down. And the note gave a little bit more information on this particular situation to let us know that her neighbor, who is the tenant who's overstaying, has some significant mental health issues. I'll just leave it at that. He's very angry and upset. And so that led us to realize this might be a contentious situation. And so I took a picture of it, and when the deputies arrived, I show it to the main deputy in charge, and he looked at it and he said, I got to make some calls. So there were about 8, 9, 10 sheriff's deputies all there together, and they called and found out we had to wait for a PET team. That's Psychiatric Evaluation Team. That's an acronym.
Yeah, not your dogs.
Not your dogs.
Yeah, they're not bringing over
bringing over the canine unit.
Right.
No, they had to contact the PET team, the Psychiatric Evaluation Team, and wait for them to arrive, because this is now a psychiatric issue, not just a regular tenant eviction.
And the long story that we're telling basically resulted in a non-eviction.
Butt kiss. Yeah, we got nothing.
We got nothing for it.
Yeah.
So Todd, you get there that day,
Mm-hmm.
and the pet team comes in.
Yep.
And now they are doing their thing, whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through what happened. Was he cooperative? Because I wasn't there. And so I've just kind of relayed this. I've lived it with you via text and by phone. But, these people that are listening to us for the first time are probably thinking, are you kidding me? Like, why couldn't they just get him out?
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a little bit of, he was not cooperative. Okay. I'll start with that.
You were going to say he was cooperative, but no, he wasn't.
No, if the tenant is cooperative, it's a pretty easy deal. Most tenants, if they see law enforcement at the door, are going to want to cooperate because they know what happens when you don't cooperate. But this tenant was not cooperative, was unwilling to come to the door. And
they could talk to him from the door, though. They could see him.
They could talk to him, but afterwards, basically, the way it works is that if they cannot get him to come in, they're not going to go in with force. That's not the way it works these days. So afterwards, when I debriefed with the sergeant in charge, he basically said, listen, he was not being cooperative, and we're not in a position where we're going to go in over a civil issue and use any sort of force in this particular case. And so we're going to have to figure out a different way. So it was actually several hours there, and we ended up with nothing. Yeah. And in fact, we are a nothing burger, and we are still working through this process. So if you tune in on a future episode, hopefully we'll have an update, and we can give you a little bit more to the story. But right now, we're in a position of trying to figure out how to get the tenant to leave where we can rekey the door.
Yeah. And we call this the dark side of real estate.
The dark side.
We're talking with the neighbors.
It's the seedy underbelly of real estate.
Yeah. It's the side that nobody likes. And, if you were to ask me 20 years ago when I got my real estate license, if I would be doing sheriff's evictions and showing up with police officers and trying to figure out ways, this really wasn't in my peripheral vision. Like, it just wasn't in my foresight. Yeah. But here we are doing what needs to be done as the Bald Brothers team.
That's right. And, if you watch the show Selling Sunset, that is not us.
That's not us.
That is a fantasy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like all of those TV shows that are related to real estate agents is really a fantasy.
That's right. And hey, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is the All Things Real Estate Show. You've got Todd, that's myself, and Aaron right across from me.
That's me.
And we are the Bald Brothers team at Impact Properties. If you would like to talk to us, and maybe you have an investment property that you would like to sell and there's a tenant, and you want to talk through that process, give us a call. You can call us at 833-305-BALD, BALD, 833-305-BALD. You can also go to baldbrothers.tv, and our website will give you all the stuffs that you need to know.
All the things.
All the stuffs.
All the things are there.
Yep.
Yeah, so we are basically left with strategizing, still working with the law enforcement, still trying to come up with a circumstance thereby which we would gain access and possession of the home.
Yep.
And a good question in that a lot of people ask is, what happens if you do gain possession, and what are you going to do with all of the personal belongings?
All of this stuff.
All of this stuff. And in this case, we're basically going to work with the family members that we know of that are also involved in this.
Yes.
And those belongings will be removed from the home and provided to the family. We don't want the things.
Family members of the tenant, fortunately, in this situation, now it's not always the case, but in this situation is being very cooperative because they want their loved one to get the help that he needs. nobody is interested in keeping the personal belongings of the tenant. That's not the case.
Yeah.
We just need to be able to have access to be able to sell the home. And so what we'll do is we'll coordinate with the family to deliver the items that are needed. It sounds like a lot of the items they're just going to want to get rid of anyways, and we'll handle that. We have a process for that.
Now, interesting thing too that a lot of people don't realize is that the burden and the cost of maintaining this property falls on the estate. So right now we have an executor who's been appointed by the probate that says you need to basically sell this property, and they are responsible for carrying the costs and the burdens of this property until it gets sold. And so if this drags on for months and months and months, that could be very costly. Now, will they get reimbursed from the proceeds? Of course they will. But still,
there's a process to go through, though.
If there's no proceeds yet, then those are out-of-pocket expenses.
They're out of pocket. We've got to get to we've got to get this property to the point that there are proceeds. And hey, guess what? You and I don't see anything either.
No,
until we sell the home.
Hey, that's right. We're paid on commission, of course, like all realtors. Yeah. And so we get paid at the closing, and we too have out-of-pocket expenses that are associated with prepping and taking care of, and all of the time and effort put into it. Yep. And that's just part of the job.
Yep. And there are some realtors that will not take probate listings because there's always wild cards. There's aspects to it that you just don't know. In fact, we didn't know about this one, the extent of it, until we got into it. But it's what we do.
It is what we do.
So stay tuned. We're gonna give you more details and information about this as we continue to work through this process.
And if for some reason when you come back, we have already updated the public about what's going on here through our show, you can find all of the shows listed at baldbrothers.tv, and you can go and you can subscribe to our podcast on anywhere podcasts are found. And when you're there, leave us a 5-star review. We'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to get your comments. You can reach us at 833-305-BALD. That's 833-305-BALD. And by the way, we're not going to answer that one personally. We have a call center 24 hours a day. They'll call, they'll answer, take your name and number and contact information, forward that to us, and then the next business day, of course, at business hours, we will give you a call back.
In order to get a hold of us, you do need to know how to spell. So how do you spell bald?
Oh, B-A-L-D. There we go. And
it's 833-305.
It's not 800. It's not 888. It's 833.
That's right.
All right. So, Todd.
We've only been working. How long have we known each other? 25, 26, 27 years?
Who are you again? I forget.
It's the Tom and Jerry show.
It might be trademarked. Hold on. Hey, Todd. So speaking of commissions not getting paid till the end, there's a big news article that just came out, and I actually had it up here on my screen for those of you who are watching our show on YouTube. The Real Estate Board of New York just announced that the way real estate commissions are paid in New York is about to change. Boom, boom, boom.
Dun, dun, dun. Yep.
So what's going on there?
Well, for us, it's a big deal. For most people that are doing a real estate transaction, they're not going to notice a huge difference.
Right.
The standard way a real estate transaction goes down is the seller pays the commission for both the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Now, the way that normally happens is that the full commission goes to the listing agent, and the listing agent then splits it with the buyer's agent.
Correct. So on paper, it all gets paid to the listing brokerage, and then the listing brokerage then pays a portion of that to the buyer's brokers.
Yep.
And there's instructions in the escrow process that give all those details. But what's happening in New York is likely to make its way across the country eventually. But from a dollars and cents standpoint, nothing's really changing.
Yeah.
It's really only the instructions on paper.
Instructions on paper.
So instead of, according to the article that we read today, that just came out
today,
instead of the full listing commission going to the listing broker, they're basically going to determine ahead of time how much is going to the listing broker, how much is going to the buyer's broker. All that's the same so far, but the check is going to go directly to the buyer's broker direct from escrow, as opposed to funneling through the listing broker back to the buyer side.
Yeah.
So essentially nothing's changing.
Yeah, it's just all on paper. And as Aaron said, these things tend to matriculate across the country. And so we, of course, are in real estate here in Southern California, really all of California if you want to, but Southern California is where we primarily operate. And, we'll probably see eventually that come down our way. But, it doesn't change a whole lot for how you and I operate, because normally if you were to say, hey, we want to call the Bald Brothers team, and by the way, you can call the Bald Brothers team by calling 833-305-BALD. We want to call the Bald Brothers team. We want them to list our home. We would have a sit down with you. We'd take a look at the home. We'd talk about the selling process. We'd look at some comps, and then we'd talk about the listing contract. And one of the things that we do in our conversation is we kind of talk through what the commission structure would be, our side, but we also really leave it up to the sellers what they would like to pay out towards the buyer's agent. Now, that does filter through us. It does go through us, but we do have that conversation. That's not really going to change the conversation, because ultimately...
But not for you and me, Todd.
Not for you and me.
Because we've always approached it that way, where we talk about what we get paid, and then we talk about what the buyer's agent gets paid.
Yeah.
And it's often two different numbers because of the work, because of whatever, and because of the going market. I mean, there's a number of different dynamics. That's not the way that a lot of realtors operate.
Yeah, that's true.
They just give a number and they don't explain it.
They don't explain how the breakdown works. Yeah.
Right.
And they don't give options.
Correct.
So what we'll normally do is we'll give options, say, listen, you can pay the buyer's agent what you choose. This is what we recommend for the best results in the transaction, to get the best response to the marketing. But you're right. Most agents don't do that. They just give you the number and then they split it up themselves.
Now, what's interesting about commissions, and if you guys are rolling your eyes on commissions, it's okay. Like, we get it, right? But if you are interested in selling your property, you're like, wait a minute, talk more about that. And so this is for you, for you who are thinking about it and really calculating how much money it's going to cost you to sell a property. Hey, my voice just inflected there.
Hey, you're going backwards in age.
I'm going backwards. I'm getting younger. Yes.
It's like Mork and Mindy, right?
Exactly.
What planet's he from?
Right. So I have no idea. So anyways, if you're thinking about selling, of course, this is important to you. So we want to make sure we address that issue. You get to choose. Period. End of story. Commissions are not set in law. There are lawsuits making their way through courts right now in our country that are trying to disrupt and change the way commissions are paid. But it's going to be a year, year and a half, 2 years after the appeals process before anything really happens to the way it's effectively changed. This board in New York is an independent board, separate and apart from the National Association of Realtors. And so most of us, including Todd and I, belong to the National Association of Realtors, and we have a different standard. We have different code of ethics that we have to abide by. And one of those things is a clear participation rule. We need to make sure we offer compensation to the buyer's side of the transaction. That specific requirement, however, is going to be changing as a result of these lawsuits.
Yeah.
It's just a foregone conclusion that something's going to change. What does that mean again? In reality, the buyer may have to pay for their own agent's commission. Is that going to effectively change the way we do real estate? Maybe not in the immediate future, Todd, because we're so used to it. But once things kind of work their way out through the system and start to matriculate to how we practice, there's a good chance in the future that if you want to buy a house and you want representation, that you need to hire your own realtor.
Yeah, and I can imagine that will then change even the lending process, because if a buyer is now responsible for paying their agent, that might have to work into whatever they're qualified for on the loan. That would be rolled into it. I mean, if you've ever worked with a lender, there's a lot of different ways that these things can work out.
Yep.
And so stay tuned. I mean, we'll see. Things are constantly changing. But the fact is, real estate will continue to move regardless, and there's a need for those services that a realtor provides, whether it's a listing agent, a buyer's agent, and you as the client, whether you're a buyer or a seller, does have a certain degree of control, though, over those things, and those should be part of the discussion that you have with your realtor.
Absolutely. And if you can't have those discussions with your realtor for whatever reason, because they're not open to it, you don't feel comfortable with it, we recommend looking for an alternative realtor, because you want to find a realtor that you're very comfortable with, that you have a great relationship with, because you're going to be working with this professional for the next 30 to 180 days, depending on the transaction that you're in. And so let us encourage you, reach out to somebody that you feel that you like, that you know, that you can trust, because this is a very integral part of your transaction. So,
yeah.
We are the Bald Brothers team. This is the All Things Real Estate Show. Thanks for tuning in. You can find more information about us at baldbrothers.tv, not baldbrothers.com, baldbrothers.tv.
We do have a .com website. You can go to baldbrothers.tv and just click on the upper left-hand side. It'll take you to that .com.
That's right.
But you know what? I don't want people to be confused. So baldbrothers.tv. Just go there.
That's right.
And you'll get to the right spot.
And here's a market update.
Yes.
Interest rates nearing 8%, following the 10-year Treasury, which is now higher than it's been.
And interest rates are always tied to that 10-year Treasury.
They are. And so being that that's higher, we know that interest rates are going higher. The question becomes, is it possible for buyers to buy? The short answer is still yes. But I think people need to realize that the number of listing transactions, the number of transactions happening is down to a historic low.
It is, yeah.
We are selling less properties because a lot of people refinanced into those low 2 and 3% rates, and they don't want to give up that, or they can't afford to give that up.
Yep.
And so what's cool, and I just want to throw this out here, Todd, we're not lenders, but Crosswalk Mortgage does have a program where you can not take your rate with you, but you can get bridge financing to buy a replacement home before you sell your existing home. And what that does is it allows somebody the freedom to not necessarily be locked into selling their home until they found their replacement home, because there's so few inventory, right? There's so few homes. People are like, I don't want to put my house on the market until I know I have a place to go. So they have a mortgage program that they came up with that they use through another lender, but we're brokers, the Crosswalk Mortgage is brokers. And so it allows them to get a loan on a new house before listing their old house. So that's a pretty cool program.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to sell and they look around and think, I don't have any houses that I like that I can buy, I can't do that. I can't risk that. This program now allows them to buy a new home and then turn around after they're in their new home and sell their old one.
Yep. And that's a great program through Crosswalk Mortgage, and they are one of our sponsors. And so I highly recommend considering giving them a call if you're interested in knowing more about that program.
And we also would love to send you an early release copy. We'll send you the PDF version of our new book that's coming out. It's going to be talking about how to sell your house fast for cash as is. And in some cases, you can avoid real estate commissions altogether.
Yeah. Hey, then it's don't have to even worry about that conversation.
That's right. So if you have an interest in selling your house as is, we would love to get you on our email database list. And as a thank you for signing up and subscribing to our list, we will send you this copy. It is almost ready to go. I know we've been talking about it for a couple months.
We've had a few rounds of edits on it.
We have, and we want it to be better than it's been. And so we keep looking at it and kind of thinking about it. We want to make sure everything's accurate and up to date and timely, especially with these current changing markets right now.
And by the way, I should say,
what should you say?
This is a very easy read. This is an easy book to read.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, this is not Dostoevsky. This is not a Russian novel. This is an easy read, but it's practical. It's a very practical book.
It's under 100 pages. I don't want to oversell it. It's not like you're getting an encyclopedia or an amazing work of art.
It's a coloring book.
Yeah. Color your house here. Yeah. We should put some coloring pages in there. It might work out well. So, hey, well, I appreciate you, Todd, and you going down there on short notice as we work through the situation with the tenant. I really appreciate you doing that. And, it is teamwork.
Yeah.
Working through a real estate transaction today requires teamwork.
Yeah. And, just to interject one thing that I should have mentioned earlier is that a tenant eviction is not a fun thing, because we do have a heart for those tenants as well. I don't want anybody to think that we're just the heartless realtors and brokers that are just trying to get somebody out of their home. That's not the case at all. But we do have a job to do, and we are hired by the estate. We are hired by the seller to do that job. But there are resources to help. And in this particular case, fortunately, we've got the family. But it's not our goal to see somebody out on the street. And there are resources, and oftentimes we can help try to connect those resources as well.
Thank you for tuning into the All Things Real Estate Show. Again, one last call. Go to check us out at baldbrothers.tv or give us a call at 833-305-BALD. Thanks for listening to the All Things Real Estate Show. The Bald Brothers team is a licensed DBA of Impact Properties, Inc., licensed by the California Department of Real Estate number 019222671. Again, we do not give any real estate, legal, or financial advice, and we do encourage you to seek the advice of the proper professionals. If you'd like to reach us, you can call us at 833-305-BALD, or you can reach us online at baldbrothers.tv. Equal housing opportunity.